The city is running out of water, the shelters are running out of beds, and the summer hasn't started yet. Arizona, 2026. Over 15,000 people without a home. A river that supplies water to 40 million people across 7 states is at 30% capacity and falling. And a government that just celebrated reducing its homeless count by 9 people out of 10,000 and called it a trend. This is not a story about bad luck. This is a story about a system doing exactly what it was designed to do. The question is just who it was designed for. She was 9 months pregnant, sleeping on a floor. No bed, no address. Due April 1st. And already thinking about giving the baby up for adoption because she couldn't figure out how to be a mother without a home. That's not a statistic. That's Arizona right now. And the number of people in that exact position, no shelter, no exit, no plan, just hit a record high. Arizona counted over 15,000 people experiencing homelessness in 2025. That's up from roughly 10,000 before the pandemic, a 50% increase in 5 years. The overall count went up again this year. But buried inside that number is the part that actually matters. The unsheltered population, people sleeping in parks, riverbeds, under overpasses, jumped 28% in a single year, not 28% over a decade, not 28% during some unusual crisis, 28% in 12 months. While the sheltered count barely moved, the streets got a lot more crowded. The system isn't losing ground slowly, it's losing ground fast. And the question worth asking is, why is the number of people sleeping outside rising so much faster than the headline figure? Because the answer has nothing to do with human behavior, and everything to do with beds. Between 2024 and 2025, Metro Phoenix lost over 1,000 shelter beds. Not because of mismanagement, not because of policy failure, because the emergency federal funding that created them during COVID ran out, and nobody replaced it. That's it. The check stopped. 1,000 people lost their beds. Nobody got fired. Nobody got prosecuted. The spreadsheet just moved on. Picture this. You're managing a shelter. You have 200 beds tonight. You know by January you'll have 80. You're not closing because the need disappeared. You're closing because the check stopped coming. And the people you have to turn away don't get placed somewhere else. They go outside. The problem wasn't created by the people on the street. It was created in a budget line that nobody renewed. The beds are gone. The money is gone. The people are still here. Funny how that works. To afford a standard 2-bedroom apartment in Arizona without spending more than 30% of your income on housing, you need to earn $34 an hour. Arizona's minimum wage is $14.70. At that rate, you'd need to work 78 hours a week just to cover rent. Not groceries, not utilities, not a car payment, just rent. Most people working those jobs work 40 hours, which means a standard apartment costs them roughly twice what they can afford, which means they find roommates, or move further out, or they fall behind once and the whole thing collapses. Arizona ranked 12th in the country for highest required housing wage. That's worse than most of the country, in a state where a lot of people moved specifically because it was supposed to be affordable. The math was never going to work for the people it needed to work for most, and when the math doesn't work, the street fills up. In late 2023, Phoenix cleared The Zone, a 15-block homeless encampment in downtown that had grown to nearly 1,000 people. A court ordered it dispersed. The city complied. Local news covered it like a victory lap. And technically, it was, if your definition of solving homelessness is making it harder to photograph. About 80% of zone residents accepted some kind of referral, to shelter, to services, to transitional beds. The other 20% walked away into the city. And within months, new encampments appeared near Sky Harbor Airport, along train tracks, under highway overpasses across Phoenix. By late 2025, an AZ Central investigation found that Phoenix's unsheltered population had risen nearly 40% since the zone was cleared. The encampment wasn't the problem. It was the symptom. Dispersal is not the same as housing. Phoenix learned that. Eventually. The people who slept outside in the meantime learned it first. In 2024, federal HUD grants brought over $107 million into Arizona for homeless services and housing programs. The Trump administration has moved to shift that funding away from long-term housing toward emergency shelter beds and work requirement programs. Maricopa County alone stands to lose $32 million in federal assistance and nearly 1,400 housing units under the new policy direction. And Arizona's state housing tax credit, a key tool for building affordable units, was set to sunset at the end of 2025. Federal money shrinking, state tools expiring, local shelter capacity already down 1,000 beds, and a street count that just hit a record. That's not a coincidence. That's a policy direction. And the people it lands on hardest don't have lobbyists. Now add the heat, and then add the water. In 2024, 608 people died from heat-related causes in Maricopa County alone. That's one county. Street medicine teams report treating people for third-degree burns from ground temperatures that reach 180 degrees. Not air temperature, ground temperature. Asphalt hot enough to cook through skin. About 15% of people found in encampments are dehydrated enough to need a saline drip on the spot. Nearly half of all heat deaths in 2024 involved people experiencing homelessness. The state celebrated that number as progress. It was down from 645 the year before. 44 consecutive days in 2024 saw at least one heat-related death every single day in Maricopa County. What does progress look like when the baseline is that? And the water situation is not improving. Lake Mead and Lake Powell have dropped from 90% capacity in 2000 to around 30% in 2025. Arizona enters 2026 in its fifth consecutive year of Colorado River shortage, with 18% of its total allocation cut. For someone with a home, that means slightly higher water bills. For someone sleeping outside in Phoenix in July, someone who needs to drink 3 gallons a day just to replace what they sweat, it means hydration stations that close at sundown, public fountains surrounded by no loitering signs, and a city slowly running out of the one thing the desert never had enough of to begin with. The data on Housing First programs is clear. Give someone a stable place to live before requiring them to fix everything else, and they stay housed. Arizona programs report housing retention rates above 80% after 1 year. That's a track record. The problem isn't whether Housing First works. The problem is that federal policy is now actively moving in the opposite direction. Washington looked at the thing that works and decided the thing that's cheaper is close enough. An emergency bed solves tonight. Permanent housing solves the next 10 years. The 2026 point-in-time count showed the total homeless population in Maricopa County at 9,726, nearly identical to 2025. Phoenix announced that unsheltered numbers dropped 13% and called it a positive trend. What they didn't announce quite as loudly, the overall count barely moved. 9 people fewer, out of nearly 10,000. And the summer of 2026 hasn't started yet. Somewhere in Phoenix right now, a pregnant woman is sleeping on a floor. The system that was supposed to catch her ran the math.